Welcome to Milspouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to telling the stories of military families, one spouse at a time. Need some inspiration as you navigate military life? Moves, deployments, raising military kids, keeping your marriage together, career issues, and more? Get an encouraging, humorous outlook from a spouse who's been there for 30 years and more moves than she can count. Join host Jen McDonald, author of the book You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse who knows that we're stronger together. Grab your cup of coffee or a glass of wine and sit back and relax as Jen talks with military spouses, both new and experienced, who will give you real-life hope and support for your own Milspouse journey.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Milspouse Matters. If you're a regular listener of the show, you're going to realize that this is coming out on a different day. I thought I would just give you a little bonus holiday episode before Thanksgiving hits. So before we get to that, I just wanted to mention that we're coming up to the end of our first season. We're almost to 15 episodes. Really exciting. Thank you so much for all your feedback. I love the notes and you telling me what you're enjoying and what you're learning from the show and from the awesome guests that we've been having. I appreciate hearing from you so much. If you would like to be on the show or you know somebody that would, the only way I'm taking guests now is through an intake form on my website, milspousematters.com. So go there and click on the podcast tab and you'll see the application form and we can see if you're a good fit for the show. So this episode, I'm doing a fun crossover with Sheena Arting from the Dear MilFamily Podcast. You can hear part of it here, and then the rest will be released on her podcast right around Christmas. So make sure and go subscribe and listen to her show, Dear MilFamily. It's been a lot of fun. We had a great time talking about all kinds of stuff to do with military families around the holidays, whether to decide to go visit your extended family, stay put, how to cope when your spouse is deploying or just about to deploy, all those kinds of things. So that was a ton of fun. I think you'll really enjoy it. And then after that, I have clips from some past guests and then other military spouses that are sharing their best military family stories and tips from the holiday season. So I really think you'll enjoy it. We've got stories from overseas, of disasters making turkey, of getting together with family, i.e. friends that really are more like family, and then all the things that happen when you're traveling. So I hope you enjoy it. And wherever in the world you are, if you're overseas, if you're deployed, or if your family member is deployed, please know that I'm thinking of you. I appreciate so much what you're doing. You are not alone. You are loved. I hope that wherever in the world you are, you have a wonderful holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Now on to my talk with Sheena from the Dear MilFamily Podcast. Happy holidays!
Today we're going to talk all about holidays, and this is a question I see come up all the time on Facebook groups. So spouses are always asking, what do you guys do for the holidays? Do you go home? Do you stay? What should we do? And so I wanted to kind of tackle this on and just talk about it a little bit. So what do you think, Jen? What should those spouses do?
Oh man, that's such a loaded question because even though I am a little bossy, I don't try to tell other people what to do with their lives just because I don't know what other circumstances are going on. So with that little caveat, I will say so much of it depends on what's going on with the rest of your family. Mm-hmm. So I think in my younger days, so just to backtrack, we were Air Force family for 31 years. So that's probably older than more time than a lot of your listeners. So I think when you're first in military life and you're first married, at least I did. I wanted things to try to stay the same as possible with my extended family.
Agree.
And I was always looking for a reason to go back because you don't want that to change, right? Yeah. You want your relationships to stay. Well, then for us, what changed that? We would go home the first couple of years. Then we had a baby. And then we're like, okay, well, our parents didn't live in the same location. So then you get into that. Who do you go see and not hurt the other one's feelings, or you switch off? And we did that for a couple of years. And then there was just a year we looked at each other and we said, we aren't even putting up a tree anymore. Aww. And we're not starting our own traditions because we're so worried about travel and we've got to give our kids that experience. So then we changed our policy. It sounds very official. And we told our parents at that time, if you want to see us during the holidays, you've got to come to us because we want to stay home with our babies. And so that's kind of when it changed for us. But then I would say during other times, like when Steve was deployed, I did go home just because it was something to look forward to. And of course, it's a totally different scenario. So I don't know if that answers your question at all.
It totally does.
Just kind of our experience.
No, and I completely agree with that. When we were newly married, it was my first time, being a military spouse and living pretty far away from my family.
Yeah.
Like, it was just the next state over, but the state of Texas is gigantic and it takes forever to drive through it. So it was forever for me. And we would go home every year. And I'm going to share a couple of favorite memories, but my first one would probably be one year we decided to drive back to Albuquerque to see my family. And there was a huge snowstorm. They closed the freeways. We had to pull off in some little tiny town out in New Mexico somewhere. And
Truth or Consequences. I'm from New Mexico.
Oh, you are?
I don't think we realized this. Yeah, but go ahead with your story. We'll talk about that. I was like TRC or wherever you were, Tucumcari or wherever you were driving.
Before, because we were driving on I-10 from San Antonio to Las Cruces, and then we took I-25. Yeah, I-25. See, I'm from there, and I still get I-25 and I-40 confused all the time. But that's okay. That's off topic. Anyway, so we were driving north on I-25, and I think it was before we had even gotten to Socorro. My husband probably has a better memory of this because he was driving, and so we had to pull off the road because they closed the highways, and we were snowed in for that night. The whole rest of the day, they still weren't opening the highways. And we were all my family was like, are you going to be here for Christmas? Or are you going to be just an hour south of us having Christmas in a hotel room? But it's a favorite memory of mine because it was it's just crazy things that you get to experience together as a young couple. You know what I mean? It wasn't what we were expecting, but we still made the best of it and we had fun. We went and ate at the Denny's connected to the hotel and,
because it was walkable.
Yeah, exactly. Hung out in the hotel, had some drinks and things and, had fun together. It was still enjoyable, even though we were not doing something that we weren't expecting to be doing. But we did make it there on, I think, Christmas Eve. So that was nice. But it was a fun memory, like I said, because we really got to connect as a young couple and have that time together.
And I think that's so important is you've got to start creating your own memories.
Yeah.
As your own little family unit, which is hard to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
when you really miss home and you really miss your extended family. Of course you couldn't go back. It's not bad. It's just, but there does come a point when you've got to kind of pay attention to the little unit that you're creating, I guess.
Yeah. Because it's hard. It's hard negotiating with your families because, now you have a whole nother family to go see for the holidays. And of course, my husband's parents want us to come and see them too. And like you said, we just got to a point after we had our first son, we went to his parents for Thanksgiving and then we went back for Christmas and it was just this is just getting to be too much. And
it's exhausting. Yeah. And I think, like I said, circumstances play a role in that if your spouse is deployed or about to deploy. So a couple of different things. We've lived overseas 4 times. So I'm trying to think of where we were living. Oh, Guam. So we were living in Guam and we had a super typhoon at the beginning of December, I believe, which is basically a Category 5 hurricane.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's crazy.
It was crazy. And then, so I think I'm trying to remember, I get my stories mixed up because it's been a while, but we had one storm hit. And so then you see the base is working. We lived on base, was working really hard to get the power and everything back up. And so by the end of that week, they were saying, in another day you'll have power. And the way they did that was the families would go eat at the chow hall and stuff because there was no power, no water. So then right when they almost had it back up, another storm hit. And this is a testament to my husband's very positive disposition. I'm crying because we had a little one in diapers and it was hot and humid and I was just tired of, it's just tiring to not have electricity and water. And I was washing out clothing on a Lego table with a bottle of water. It was it was ridiculous. And he's like, how many people get to say they've been through 2 typhoons in 1 week? And I was like, you are out of your mind. Who wants to say that?
Who do you know that actually is proud of that fact?
Well, it's one of our stories now, right? So I think the power came on it was within days of Christmas. That Christmas was shot to heck because you're not able to do any of the normal things. You're already so remote anyway. Well, then my mother-in-law my father-in-law had died by this point. She was really good about, she would typically always fly to everywhere in the world because she wanted to be with us.
Aww.
And so we had even told her, you don't need to come because we don't even have power yet. And she's like, no, if you're suffering, I want to suffer too. And I was like, I'm telling you, you don't want to
suffer.
Trust me. Like we all smell bad. The couches are kind of mushy because it's so humid. And so she flew in, and I think 2 days later, the power came on, and it was literally right before Christmas. But I have this memory of the power came on, and this is it probably says a lot about my personality. I'm vacuuming like right away. So the lights are on, and my 4-year-old or however old she was running in and out and flipping the light switch on and was so excited. I mean, she didn't even need a present. It was like, oh my gosh, it works. Look, the lights come on if you turn on the light switch. And I'm vacuuming. We have music playing. We're dancing around. And it was like there was a Christmas tree in the background because we had set it up. And it was just like, it reminded us what was important. They did not give our needed presents that year. I mean, it was like they got a couple of things, but it was just that little stuff that matters so much in your life. I'm telling you, for like the next month, my daughter, my littlest one, would walk into a room, stand on her tiptoes and push the light switch and go, lights on.
Oh, that's so sweet. She got the gift of electricity.
Exactly. It's like, you are probably the only kid I know that appreciates the fact that if you flip a switch, the lights actually come on.
Aww.
Like you. So that was one thing. And then I think there was another memory I have. It was when they were first ramping up in Iraq, and my husband was leaving. I think it was the day after Christmas, and we knew this. And that was a hard Christmas. This is not a great memory. I don't know. I'm sharing this. You can cut it out if you want, but it was just part of our lives. And I remember leading up to Christmas, just that feeling of dread and like, wow, this sucks, because we didn't know how long he was going to be gone. He was kind of going into the middle of everything. And that was such a hard Christmas. And I think we had planned to travel. And when we realized, because, they don't tell them the exact day they're going to leave. They're like, we're going to leave the week after Christmas and you just need to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of told everybody we're hunkering down and just going to be us. Mm-hmm. And they all understood that, but that was a rough Christmas. And I think he left the 26th. It ended up being. So I have this memory of all his gear and stuff kind of laid out. Like we'd open presents, and the next thing you know, he's getting all his gear ready.
That turns my stomach in knots. Like if that had been me, I would have been like, you better hide that stuff until you are ready to go, because I do not want to look at it during Christmas.
I think it was, he got the call, like, we're leaving in the morning.
Aww.
So it was just like, we had opened presents, we're eating, and then all of his bags are by the door, and it was just, so I think that's not a great memory and might be a little depressing and not very holiday friendly, but it is the reality
of military life.
For military family. Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
I have depressing memories too. Like my husband he deployed right before I gave birth to our first child. We went through infertility, just a little. I'm sure my listeners have heard this story a few different times before, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet. We went through infertility, got pregnant, and then found out that he had been picked up for a deployment, because we were like, just go ahead and, you are going to come up anyway. So just go ahead and volunteer for one if you see one that you want to actually do, Mm-hmm. And so we weren't sure if we were going to get pregnant. Well, come to find out, I got pregnant, and the deployment he volunteered for, he got picked up for. So it was like,
And it was before Christmas, you said, or after?
It was like right before Christmas. Well, he left in August, and then I gave birth in October. And so then so I was alone for Halloween, went to friend's house for Thanksgiving, because of course with a new baby, I couldn't travel. And I remember he had the worst blowout diaper on my friend's spare bedroom carpet. And of course new mom didn't bring enough wipes. And I was like so embarrassed.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm so sorry, but my child had an accident on your carpet.
And can I use your shower real quick to rinse him off?
Real quick. I'll clean up when I'm done. Yeah. And so that was kind of a depressing holiday, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Just going, I mean, it was nice to be able to celebrate with friends. I did appreciate that part of it.
Right.
But of course, you want to spend it with your loved one, right? Your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
But then for Christmas, I did end up going home just because I felt like Christmas, I really want to be around my family members.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so that was fun doing all the baby gear that, as a new mom, you think you need to bring with you. The big giant stroller and the car seat and the baby bag and, but I actually had somebody a nice woman help me, and she helped me change planes and help me carry stuff. And so it kind of reminded me that, people really do want to help, and everybody has that kindness in them somewhere. Everybody.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and looping back to going home, one year when Steve was deployed again, we were in Germany. And that year, my kids were much older by that point. Our oldest was a senior in high school. So we have 4 kids that are all grown now. And we decided, we all needed something to look forward to. So we got our tickets my parents were in Texas at that time, and we were going to fly back, and my siblings were going to all come in and meet up for a couple of weeks. And then we were also combining that with college visits for my oldest to go do those visits at the same time. And that gave us something to look forward to. And that meant a lot. But I think it was probably the only time I don't think we even put up a tree, because we were leaving like December 10th or something crazy, as soon as they were done with school. I don't know that I would do it that way again, because it was a little depressing to come back home and like you don't have anything up, and it's like, the holiday's really over, So, but that was a nice little bright spot in the middle of everything, and it helps you kind of forget.
Yeah,
and it's also the only time I brought home someone else's luggage from the airport. Did that in Germany. That went well.
I can only imagine.
It's just, and then we were like 2 hours from the Frankfurt airport, and we get all the way home, and I opened this bag, and I'm like, whose stuff is this?
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Did they have anything interesting in there?
I was just so tired because,
you're like, I'm not going to go.
And then where's my bag with all my Christmas presents I just got? So thankfully they hadn't taken mine because they knew what they were doing, and we just had to drive all the way back to the airport. And, yeah. Well, and there's nothing like moving during the holidays. So we had moved to Hawaii, which, nobody's going to cry for me with that one. But, when you move overseas, you don't know how long your things are going to take to get there. And I think we had left in October, and they called us and said, we've got your household goods, and we can either deliver them, it was like December 22nd or 23rd, or you can wait until after. And we just kind of all looked at each other and said, bring our stuff. So that was a Christmas where we were sitting on boxes, eating our dinners, and pulled it together with some neighbors. And we were on base. I think that makes a difference too. Like what kind of community you're in.
I agree with that, because like on base living, when it's just so much more of a community feel to it. Not that, you don't have your neighbors and you don't have that community when you're off base, but I don't know. Everybody just has like that understanding that we get it. We know why you're not going home. We know why we're having Christmas on top of boxes.
Yeah. Get it. And they'll run a cherry pie over to you or they'll invite you just to come eat with them because they've all been there or are going to be, right? So, yeah.
So now that you kind of are on the other side, you guys have retired and everything, and you have a grandchild, right? Just one or more than one?
Just one perfect grandbaby right now.
Because I've seen pictures of her, and I was like, oh my goodness, she's adorable.
She is.
So
she is.
Do you enjoy having them come see you, or do you go see them for holidays?
So she's only 2, and my son is in the Air Force. So that's another layer of complexity, because it's funny to see your kids decide to do that, because after they've lived the life,
you're like,
his whole life.
What the heck?
And I was really surprised. So, and then this is where you have to suck it up and realize you're not the only set of parents, of in-laws. It's I love being a mother-in-law. I have great daughters-in-law, but there's a selfishness. I want them with me all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And I see things now that my parents went through. I've apologized for so much. I'm like, I didn't even realize I put you in that position, or maybe made you feel left out because of seeing it from this side. Because everybody usually has good intentions.
Yeah.
But anyway, so our kids, like true military brats, have kind of scattered to the four winds just because they're so used to that life. So at one point we were in Virginia, and my husband's last assignment, our oldest was in Alaska. That's where he was assigned. And then our second son was married and in Hawaii. So honestly, we couldn't have all still lived in the States and been further apart.
Yeah.
So I feel like there was one year we brought them all to us. And then last year, now they're stationed in Oklahoma. And our son and his wife came from Hawaii, and then they drove down. So we've actually kind of been spoiled. We've had them both years. This will be the first year we're not with her. So since my son is deployed, my daughter-in-law is with the baby in Hawaii with her parents. And I was kind of not whining, but I'm going to really miss them. And I thought we've had them for the past 2 years. So I do love having them, but I have to share.
Dang it.
So it's hard. It's hard because you want to be with that baby. And they came down a day early last year, a day earlier than we expected. And they rang the doorbell, and my husband went and opened the door, and there's this, she wasn't 2 yet, just standing there by herself. Like, there and said, put her on the porch, rang the doorbell, ran around the corner.
Like a Christmas present. That's so
it
sweet.
was. And she's just standing there. It's a lot of fun. And as a mother-in-law, and I will just say this, I see a lot of articles. I know you didn't ask this, but I see a lot of articles about, extended family and kind of not necessarily being the most gracious to the active duty person's parents. And I don't know that I ever felt that way, because I knew they worried about my husband, and those were his mom and dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop and put yourself in their shoes just for a second of how they still view that child.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have you seen the little meme where it says how every mom of an active duty sees their child? I'll send it to you if you haven't. It's
I don't think I have. Please send that to me.
in a military uniform that's like touching the ground. It's so big. And that's still how you feel about them. And I never want to intrude on their time. I never want to intrude on their plans, but give them the benefit of the doubt that they also want to see
Yeah.
the active duty person too, that they're worried about them. I'm very worried about my son. I'm trusting that he's okay and pray for him every day. But I do, it's a different kind of worry as a mom.
Yeah,
than
of course.
a spouse. It's just, and I hadn't realized until
your son
son deployed.
Yeah.
What that feels like. Right.
Right.
So that's just my little plug for in-laws.
No, and I totally agree with you, because once I became a mom and both my little boys started growing up, it was like it became much more clear to me. Yes. And I was like, oh, my mother-in-law must feel this way about my husband.
Right.
Oh, I totally get it now. Not that we ever had a contentious relationship or anything like that. Mm-hmm. She's fabulous. I love her. And I think she loves me. I'm pretty sure she loves me.
I'm sure.
It made me realize really put myself in her shoes, like you're saying. Mm-hmm. And I got it, it was like, okay, I'm going to have to do this someday for them too. I'm going to have to pull back and share, and I don't want to think about that because it's going to make me cry.
How old are your kids right now?
6 and almost 4. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And boy, it's hard because it does fly by. And I think just being gracious and understanding and assuming the best and giving your in-laws the benefit of the doubt will go a long way, because the holidays are hard. Mm-hmm. Whether you're traveling back or not, if there's expectations or you feel like you're not doing what they want and they're annoyed or upset or whatever. I mean, if you just, both sides, try to view it from both sides, give each other the benefit of the doubt. That goes such a long way into smoothing over any of that. And it may be whatever works for your family. If you don't want to go back every year, but you want to make sure and see them, tell them every other year we'll come to you, and then you're welcome to come the next year, but we are staying home. I think it's just best to set some kind of
boundary. Compromise.
Yeah, just to kind of manage expectations a little bit, because we had gotten ourselves kind of not in a bind, because nobody was ever ugly about it, but it had kind of become those first probably 4 or 5 years, we were going to go back every year, and we just had to decide that's not going to work. for us going forward, living so far away. So at that point, we were in Ohio. My family was in New Mexico and his family was in Georgia. And we were poor. We were a young family.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't afford to fly. We would drive. And that's, it's crazy.
And you can't necessarily do that with kids, like drive across the country unless you like driving, which if you like doing that, more power to you. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. And you still have to stop and stay at a hotel. I mean, I did a lot of road trips. And this is dating me. These are the pre-cell phone days, girl. I was driving across the country with little kids because I was so desperate to get home.
Yeah, of course.
At times. So yeah, I think it's just walk a mile in each other's shoes always is good advice.
Definitely. Well, and just to kind of go back, another favorite memory of mine is just once my husband got home from his deployment, we kind of had Christmas like 2 months later, basically. And that's something that like I really want to share with other military spouses, that like a lot of these holidays are just another day. Like you can have these holidays any day you want to. You can have Christmas in July and just be like, mommy or daddy, they're not going to be here. We're going to celebrate Christmas now. We're going to do this now. I think that was really helpful because I just kept I put up a little tree that year, put wrapped presents for my husband and everything and put them under the tree. And it was still, like we had Christmas together and we had fun and it was February, but it didn't matter.
It's got 2 Christmases, right?
It was still, 70 degrees in San Antonio. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because every day in San Antonio is like 70 degrees in the winter.
It's true. Well, and the other thing is too, if you have that capability, and not every location will have that. If they're deployed, you can FaceTime or whatever and watch the kids open presents or have a moment together and just do whatever you can to make it special. And I think that's what you did, is you made it special, even though it wasn't the day. It's okay.
Do it.
So I think a lot of it is you making the holidays your own and realizing that's just part of military life, is being flexible and creating happiness where you can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Okay, so this was a really good conversation. I had a lot of fun.
Oh, me too.
Thank you so much, Jen, for joining me today to talk about holidays. And I can't wait to have you on to do a full episode, ask you everything about you, grill you. No, not really.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing this.
Hi, this is Kelly Artis from Milspouse Gurus and Millie. One fateful year, we had a PCS scheduled over the Christmas holiday, and much to my dismay, it did not go as planned. We were leaving our home in North Carolina, near family and friends, and trekking across the country to California to an unknown place with no family. We tried as best we could to make it work so that we had time to kind of establish our home before Christmas Day, and sent letters to Santa Claus to make sure he knew that we had a change of address. But luckily, we had friends that were already there, and we were able to basically crash their Christmas. We were sending Amazon packages to their place, filled their garage with our Christmas, and then our household good delivery got backed up to Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, we spent accepting our delivery and unpacking boxes. And my favorite part about the whole entire crazy holiday was getting to spend and cherish our family time with our dear friends who were already there and welcomed us into their home as if we were extended family too. So we woke up Christmas morning and had 7 kids run down the stairs with glee and excitement and a house full of Christmas.
Hi, this is Wendy from Strength for Spouses, and today I'm going to talk about my husband and I's favorite holiday memory. Our favorite thing about the holidays is our wedding anniversary. My amazing husband proposed the day after Christmas, and we were married a year and a day later. I never dreamed of a Christmas wedding or of being a December bride, but it truly was the best and most wonderful wedding ever. The holidays are truly a magical time of year, and for us, it is also a wonderful reminder of the love we share and the lifelong commitment we made to each other just a few days after Christmas, almost 3 years ago.
Hi, I'm Courtney, and for the last few Thanksgivings, my family was stationed in Germany. Living overseas, the holidays are often the most difficult time of the year because you're so far away from extended family members, and you see all of the photos they post on social media, and when you video chat with them, it seems like they're all so happy, enjoying the day together, and it just makes your heart and home feel particularly empty. At least it did for me. Thanksgiving can be especially hard when you're overseas because it isn't celebrated outside of the United States. But that makes it a great time to travel in Europe. It's the off-season in many places, which means fewer crowds, better deals on hotels. For example, last Thanksgiving we rented a little house in Strasbourg, France, with another military family that we've been stationed with twice now, and we've become really close with. Strasbourg is this beautiful city that has a lot of German influence in its history and architecture. And during the holiday season, it's called the capital of Christmas because they really go all out. So we rented this adorable house, very Beauty and the Beast, and we made a big traditional Thanksgiving feast the night before the actual holiday. We made a ham and a really tiny turkey because you can't fit a traditional American butterball in a European oven without completely dismantling it. And then we spent Thanksgiving enjoying the opening day of the French Christmas market in downtown Strasbourg. It was so magical. The sights, the sounds, the smells. It felt like we were walking around in a vintage holiday card. At the end of the day, we watched the big Christmas tree in the square light up together, and it's one of my favorite memories of our time overseas. It really helped my family take our minds off the fact that we were so far from parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. And this Thanksgiving, both of our families are back at stateside duty stations on opposite sides of the country. They're on the East Coast, and we're on the West Coast. And we're really missing our military family this year, the friends that have become our family. So wherever you're stationed, if your heart and home have been feeling empty the past few holidays, I really hope that you find a way to fill the empty seats around the table at your house this year with family or coworkers or neighbors who you know might be feeling the same way. Or take a trip somewhere, go on an adventure and celebrate in a completely different way. Make it your own. Happy holidays.
Hi there. This is Lindsey from Uplifting Anchor, and I am excited to share these holiday memories with you. As an active duty Marine Corps family, we've lived all over the world, but two significant memories come to mind. The first is when we moved to Morocco. As we were moving, we left in the middle of the Christmas season. As everyone else was putting up trees, we were packing boxes. I thought this would be a really sad time for our family, but it ended up being one of the greatest set of memories we have. I put all of the Christmas presents in our unaccompanied baggage, which is the plane flight shipment that heads overseas, and we celebrated Christmas 6 weeks later in January. My daughter was just as thrilled to receive presents from Santa then as she would have been in December, and we were all together. Something that I realized with our tiny, silly little tree and our funny felt stockings that year made all the difference. The second story comes from around that same period of time, but a whole year later. We were still in Morocco when we decided to throw a breakfast for our very small unit that was located there. My husband and I packed some special gifts for the unit members, and we all showed up and cooked breakfast together. We stayed in our pajamas, we made cinnamon rolls, and watched a movie. And it was just one of the most relaxing Christmas mornings I could have ever planned. Everybody was just together, and it reminded me of what a wonderful family we have in our military family and in our military community. Thank you so much for letting me share these stories with you. Happy holidays to everybody out there, far and wide. Worldwide, stateside, wherever you are, I hope you're finding a way to celebrate your family that you're currently with.
I'm Tara Howes, and one of my favorite holiday memories is living in Okinawa and celebrating sort of the way that Okinawans do on Christmas. They go get fried chicken. I don't know why or what that's about, but we did our traditional drive around, look at Christmas lights. We usually got Krispy Kreme donuts, but overseas you have to make do. So we got some from the shopette or something, but then we also went beforehand and grabbed fried chicken and ate that just to be, sort of included in Okinawan stuff and get our kids kind of exposed to that. And then keeping our tradition alive that we did with our family. And so wherever you are in the world during this holiday season, just embrace it, try something new, and then incorporate it into one of your traditions. And that's what we've done for the last 23 years. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and you're in our thoughts.
Hey Jen, it's Dawn. I'm calling to chat with you about one of my very first Thanksgiving as an adult. I hosted a lot of family and friends. My husband had returned from Afghanistan, and there was a lot of festive vibes in the air, and I wanted to do a real big, good celebration for him and the family, and I took everything under my belt and just went for it. Appetizers to dessert, I did all of it, and it was a huge undertaking, a huge mess at the end of the day. The funny parts about this is that in addition to dozens of people at the house, we also dog sat for friends of ours that were out of town for Thanksgiving. So in total, I had about 300 pounds of dog running around in the mix of all the people. And I tell you this because we let them out at the end of the evening, and all three took off like a shot in the backyard. They cornered a possum. I had never seen a possum before. It scared me to death. I didn't know what they did. The dogs proceeded to chase the possum. Of course, it played possum and rolled into a ball. They pitched it around like a volleyball, back and forth to all three, and we had a hard, terrible time wrangling them back in. And then when we finally did, the possum literally lay dead, so I thought, in the backyard. And I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. The dogs didn't kill it, and it finally, after like an hour of them ferociously barking at the window, it toddled off like nothing ever happened. So all my hard work, all of my beautiful turkey story, all of the stuff I learned that day was totally trumped by my crazy pack of dogs tormenting a poor possum who had no idea what he had walked into. So my one last lesson that I learned is just keep putting food out on the table for people to eat. They'll eat it no matter what. I had no idea that people ate so much. If you want to get rid of things, when you have people over, just put it out on a plate. People eat it.
Hi, this is Liz Ann Lightfoot, author of the Seasoned Spouse blog, and I wanted to share some of our favorite overseas holiday experiences as a military family. Living overseas can be a difficult time to celebrate holidays because, of course, you know that you won't be with your family members and you aren't able to travel home to be with them. So we had a few different ways that we liked to celebrate. Our first favorite was to travel during the holidays and to take advantage of being overseas and being able to get discounts on American holidays like Thanksgiving, which is a regular working week for everyone else in Europe. So it could be a fun time to visit new places, get some discounted travel opportunities, and just see some of the culture that was all around us when we were stationed overseas. Another thing we liked to do to celebrate holidays was to share our family's house with those around us. And so sometimes that was the single service members who were stationed at our base and we were separated from their families. We would invite them all to come over and just make a huge potluck meal and have a casual night of board games and video games, lots of laughter and lots of fun. And it was a great way to share American food with American friends. But we also sometimes wanted to share our holidays with our local non-American friends. We were stationed in Spain, and I made some Spanish friends from the off-base community who were just enamored with the idea of American Thanksgiving. So one year we invited a Spanish family to come over and celebrate Thanksgiving with us, and they thought it was such a treat to be able to have authentic American food with an American family in Spain. So they dressed up and they came over, and I shared with them how we made turkey and ham and mashed potatoes, which I remember my Spanish friend watching me make potatoes and saying, "Oh, so it's a potato puree," because she had never seen mashed potatoes prepared that way. And we were able to get cranberry sauce and pumpkin pie filling at the commissary. So we made all the traditional American treats and shared them with our Spanish friends, which was great because our Spanish friends hosted so many activities and local events for us. We just felt like it was a simple way to return the favor. So no matter how you choose to celebrate the holidays as a military family, when you're stationed overseas, I hope that you keep your options open. Don't dwell on what you can't have and ways that you can't celebrate.
And now, Amanda Huffman from Airman to Mom shares her memory.
We moved to LA Air Force Base, which our families are from California, and we were really excited because we were going to be able to spend vacations or holidays at home. But the only problem is our families were still 4 hours away, and then they were separated by an hour. And what we ended up doing each holiday we went home was drive and drive and drive. And it was fun to see family, but it was also exhausting. So the year that my son was born, he was born in December, we decided to stay home because I was super pregnant at Thanksgiving and we had a newborn at Christmas. And it was just relaxing we did a friend's Thanksgiving and got to spend time with the friends who had become like family in our new home. And Christmas, my family came to see us, and it was just nice to spend Christmas at home and Thanksgiving close by in the neighborhood. So even though sometimes it's hard to be a military family and to be far away from your family, sometimes when you get the chance to stay home, you realize how lucky you are.
Hi, I'm Danielle Keach, and one Thanksgiving we didn't go home for the holidays. We actually stayed where we were and had a fun time celebrating with friends. And I think a lot of people would understand where we're coming from when I say that whenever we have vacation, we travel home to see family. And while there's nothing wrong with that, we actually took steps to set our own family traditions. And that was huge for us because we'd never done that before.
Hi Jen, this is Meg Flanagan from Milk Kids Ed. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to share my military family's holiday story. My very first Christmas as a military spouse, my husband had just gone back to the forward deployment location after his R&R just a few days before Christmas. And I was feeling totally down, but instead of letting me be upset or really too sad, all of my military spouse friends got together and hosted me for Christmas that year. I went to a lovely midnight mass with my good friend Whitney, and then we had a really yummy dinner. The next day, all of my friends had dinner together at one person's house, and we exchanged presents and enjoyed a good bottle of wine or two. Now that we're about a decade into this journey, I can truly appreciate how special it was to have such a great group of friends celebrating the holiday with me and helping me forget how sad deployment truly was at that moment. Thank you. Happy holidays and have a wonderful new year.
Hey guys, it's Christina from heartsandstripes.com, and I wanted to share with you my favorite holiday experience. My first Thanksgiving cooking for the family all by myself. My youngest daughter was just a couple of months old, and because of that, we couldn't travel home to be with our families. So my in-laws decided they would come up and spend the holiday with us. I get everything prepared. I start to preheat the oven, and we hear this loud pop. What in the heck? And we go into the kitchen, look in the oven, and the burner in my oven has gone out. We call around trying to find all these places, trying to find if anyone was open and had what we needed. Of course they didn't. Luckily, we had decided that we were going to fry our turkey, so that was covered. We at least had the meat, right? Well, we get home after trying to find this burner, and we finally figure out that we're just going to put the sweet potato casserole and the green bean casserole into the grill, and everything else will be made on the stove. It was quite the experience. Luckily, it turned out great, but it was definitely one of those memorable moments, and especially when it was your first time cooking for your family, and especially your first time cooking for your in-laws. great fun, let me tell you, especially with a newborn on top of it. So that was my memorable Thanksgiving, and I can't wait to hear all of yours.
Thanks, everybody, so much for sharing. That was a lot of fun. And I have a feeling that most of us can relate to at least one of those stories, if not a few, because that's just part of military life, rolling with the punches and making do and just trying to figure things out as they go. I hope you enjoyed it too, and have a great week, everybody. Happy holidays.
Connect with Jen at jenmcdonald.net or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also purchase her book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Love the show? Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Until next time, have a great week.